Hello and welcome. In this video I want to show you how to create a program that's going to be used as a component, and we're going to use a UART in this component. So I'm just going to quickly select a device. The device doesn't really matter, so I'm going to stick with one of the ECIO devices. And then if I go to search, I get a list of all components. And if I put in UART, it comes up with the cal UART. This is the low level sort of serial comms driver. So you can see we've got a list of the properties, we can set which channel we want to use, and so on. Now if we want to build a component, we have to make our own properties show some of the UART properties to be able to allow the user to set some of these properties via the properties here. These are the properties that will be shown once you've exported your component. So if we look at the UART component, you can see if I click on the channel property, it comes down here. We've got a variable name which is uppercase channel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an event, close the component search, and the event I'm going to use is a component property event. So just double click it, and then double click macro. It'll create the macro for me with the right parameters and the right return for the event. So just click OK. This event is run whenever any of the properties change, and it allows my property to be copied to the property in the cal UART component or vice versa. So I've created this EV property. I'm going to click OK and edit, and that brings up the macro here for me to edit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create, just right click on properties, or you can click on the arrow here, add new. I'm going to call this channel, and property type is a fixed list of ints. That's this one here. Property variable, let's keep things simple and call it channel or all uppercase. What we want to do is we want to copy the contents of this property selection into our channel. Now this property selection is dynamic, so whatever FCD you choose, whatever device, microcontroller device, it'll create the channels to suit that device. So it's nice to keep things dynamic. So the way to copy that list into our current property is in our EV property macro. We'll add in a simulation component icon. Go to functions. Actually, I think you can go to simulation, cal UART, and it's got things like get list, get value. So we want to get a list, as in the list of channels available. In the string, we're going to put the name of the property, so channel, and we need a string variable to store that into. So I'm going to create a local to this EV property macro variable, which is a string type. I'm just going to call it temp string. Okay, double click that, just get rid of the square brackets, there we go. So we're getting the list of channels and we're storing it into the temp string. Okay, then we need another simulation icon, double click that, go to the functions, then in the API functions it's component, property, and it's set filter. This sets the list of items available here. The handle is this, because this is the root of our panel and the component that we're going to be exporting. Property is channel again, because that's what we named our local property here. The value is our dot temp string. Okay, now if I save this, save it on my desktop, as UART component. Then if I select this, it'll call the event property, which then populates the menu. So here, if I select it again, you can see I've got both items available now. Now if I want to be able to copy that value back, you see this one's currently selected as channel 1, but this one's selected as software. So although the list is right, the value is not being copied back to this component. So to copy the value back, we add in another simulation icon. This time functions, component, property, get value. So this returns the actual value rather than the actual sort of list of values. Handle again is this. String is channel. And we'll use our temp string local variable again to store the actual property that's been selected here. To write it back to the cal component, we use simulation, and then we use the cal UART, set value. The name is channel in strings, and the value is our .temp string. So now, if I save this, if I select channel 1, it sets channel 1. If I select software, it sets to software. Now, we've got the channel, so let's add some pins. So I'm going to call this TX, and I'm going to call the variable TX. And the property type is a single digital pin. Okay. And then duplicate. This just allows us to keep the property type and the name. It just allows a little bit less work. Okay. So there's our two pin properties. Ideally, what we want to do is, when we're in software mode, we allow our component to write to the cal UART properties, and when we're in hardware mode, the pins become grayed out and they're pulled through to our exposed properties here. So we have an if, and we say if channel equals 0. The software mode's always 0, and then channel 1, the first sort of hardware channel is 1, the second is 2, and so on. So if channel 0 is if this is a software channel. So if it's a software channel, then I'm creating another simulation icon, functions, component, property, and we're going to say set writable. So it's whether the user can edit the value. Handle is this. The property can be TX. And the value, because we're allowing writes, is 1. Copy paste that and do the same for the RX property. And then copy paste both of those across into the hardware channels. And this time we'll change the value to 0. So if I save that, now when I click hardware, it grays out the values. When I click software, they're available to edit. Okay. So we also want, if it's software, we want our values here to be written to the UART. So let's see if we can do that. So what we would do is we'd add another simulation icon, functions, component, property, get value. Handle is this. The property is TX. And we're going to store that into our temp string. Then we need another simulation icon, and this time cal UART, set value. Value is TX, so the name is TX, the value is our .temp string, and then repeat this for the RX pin. So now if I save this, in software mode we can say, okay, it's going to be A0 and E1, and now we can see here we've got software mode selected, transmits A0, receives E1. So that's working. Okay, so on the other hand, if we were using a hardware channel, we want to be able to pull the value back from the CalUART component. So to do that, we do the same thing but the other way around. So this time we read from the CalUART, get value tx, and store into our .temp string. Simulation, functions, component property, set value. This property is tx, and the value is temp string. And then repeat for the receive. Rx. So now, if we select hardware channel, you can see it's set the hardware channel to be the pins assigned to the hardware channel. Another handy thing to bring through is the baud rate. So let's show you how to quickly do that. To do that, we would just copy the same code that we've used for our channel. So let's copy and paste that. Whoops, I need all four. This time we're getting the list baud, storing into temp string, setting filter, we'll call this baud, and then getting the value from the filter, baud, and setting back into the CalUART. So we'll just create a property to show that baud value. So give it a nice cosmetic name, baud rate. Variable name is baud as used here. Again, it's the fixed list of ints. Click OK. Save it. Refresh the properties. And it doesn't work. Because it's called baud underscore list, not baud. Okay. So change baud to baud underscore list. And here, where we write it back, baud underscore list. Okay. Fingers crossed. Yes. So now we can set the baud rate. So if we say 31,250 bits per second, then it's set the value here. Back to 57k. Again, it's changed the value. So this is a really easy way to create properties that will be available to your user that's going to use your component. This event property is hidden away from the user, so it's only ever fires when this property changes, meaning that none of this code gets compiled down in the embedded code generated by the component. It's just a nice clean way of providing adjustable properties for the user. So let's go back to main and let's quickly create a really easy interface for this component. So if I double click on macro and let's say we want to initialize, we want to transmit a byte. So for that we would need a byte parameter, which is the data to transmit. And we want another macro, which is receive byte. This obviously returns a value, and we pass in a timeout byte. Okay. So in initialize, we want to call the component macro CalUART initialize. Okay. The transmit byte, we want to call the CalUART send The char is the data to send, so we use our local variable or local parameter data. Receive byte, again we add a component macro, cal UART, receive. In our timeout we add a local variable which is our timeout we've created, and for the return we add the return variable we created. So here you can see all the different parameters and variables used by each macro. You can double click to switch between, and you can double click the begin to sort of edit any of the parameters for that macro. So we've got three fairly simple functions there. So we're going to use the interface manager, and we want to set all the macros that we want to be available to our user. So initialize, receive, transmit. So they're now all going to be available to our user. And then in the settings manager, we just need to give it a name. So we'll just create a UART demo component. It has to be one sort of can't have any spaces in, but the cosmetic name can have spaces in. So we would say UART demo author then Roland. Under advanced, you get a GUID. This has to be unique for every component. If it's not unique, it'll tell you down here which component it's currently associated with. You can add in some description here, and you can add in a picture for your component. Then if we save this, then we can go File, Export. You see it gives you the Settings Manager, Interface Manager, Resource Manager all in the export, so you can just double check everything's okay. So we say save as. I'm going to save it on my desktop, and it saves with the same name that we've provided here. The FCPX is a component file. It's exported OK. Now what I can do is go View, Global Options, Locations, and I can add a location here to look for components, meaning I don't have to deal with Windows write permissions in the Program Files directory. So Users then Desktop. So it's already looking in the right directory for me. OK. So if I create a new project, PCIe 40, then under search, under MISC, and I have my UART demo component, which has the properties that we exposed. Thank you very much for watching.